Hello, I'm George Middleton, your host this evening on this podcast episode of Black Space Live. The topic of our discussion today is Kevin Samuels, A Thin Line Between Love and Hate. Samuels, the self-described controversial YouTuber Samuels, who recently died, the relationship guru, was 56 years old at the time of his passing. He was known for his videos in which he gave advice on relationships, dating, and lifestyle, some which came under harsh criticism for being allegedly misogynistic. Here are a few things to know about the influencer. He had more than 1.4 million subscribers to his YouTube channel, where he dished out dating, relationship, and lifestyle advice. He also had 1.2 million followers on his Instagram account and more than 39,000 Twitter followers. His opinions could be polarizing. Samuel's advice on love and lifestyle was not for everyone and received criticism for his comments about Black women and dating. The influencer sparked outrage among some last month after stating in one of his YouTube videos that unmarried women 35 and older were leftover women. In his last video posted to Instagram entitled "Modern Women Are a Party of One," Samuels was critical of college-educated women who choose to not settle in relationships. He stated, "Why are so many modern women holding out? What are you holding out for? Whatever it is, ladies, it ain't working, and the net result of it is you become a party of one." He got his start in public relations before launching his YouTube channel. Samuels worked in public relations and image consulting and recommended fragrances and shoes for men to attract women. So, before we get into the meat and the heat of this discussion, I want the watchers and listeners to know the contenders in the ring today. We have an exciting panel of highly powerful minds, voices, and personalities that are destined to make this a very lively exchange of thoughts and perspectives tonight. So, beginning with Ms. Janelle and going around the panel, please introduce yourself and tell the audience anything you think they should know about you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. I am in Augusta, Georgia. I live here with my husband, and we have a 20-month-old daughter. I'm originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, lived in DC, went to college there, lived in Dallas, Texas, and also Miami. So pretty much been working my way around the world here, settling down here in Georgia. Excited to be here and get to know everyone and add to the commentaries for this evening.
Awesome. Great to have you.
Thank you.
Russell?
I'm Russell. I'm originally from Atlanta. Right now I'm in Vegas for the past 6 years. Been working with the government, both on county and federal level for the past 20 plus years. Looking forward to a nice discussion, hearing everyone's points of views on Kevin Samuels, and have the conversation. I'm always up for a good debate.
All right. And last but not least, Mr. Lamar Penny Finley.
Lamar Finley, everyone calls me Penny, childhood nickname, from the beautiful Orlando, Florida. Former lobbyist, political consultant, former lobbyist and political consultant. I'm currently a pilot cadet and entrepreneur. I'm learning to fly, y'all, fly planes commercially. And I'm looking forward to a good conversation.
All right. So before we get into your all's personal perspectives, I'd like to read an opinion summary on the impact of Mr. Samuel's body of work. When the news circulated about his death at 53 last week, it sparked mixed reactions from those familiar with his channel. On one hand, there were those who saw his viral comments as sexist toward women, stereotypical of men, and perpetuating a long-held divide between Black men and Black women. On the other hand, his many supporters saw Samuel as a relatable truth teller and the critical reaction to his death as disrespectful. From fans to hate watchers, though, Samuel's appeal was his willingness to say what he wanted, however he wanted to say it. Many Black men feel they were always blamed for why Black men and Black women can't have healthy relationships. Samuels became known for laying this perceived blame on women too. While some Black men saw Samuels as a hero because he said things to women that most men weren't saying, his videos also further stoked long-held divisions in a manner that many found demeaning to Black women. Popular culture started embracing Black women and celebrating Black love. And then here comes Kevin Samuels, who blew that to smithereens. So now we're back to being on two sides of the room, staring at each other. This summer's conclusion to me strikes a lot of similarities to the polarization amongst our country in general, in just about any social issue where we can discuss, from politics to family, race, you name it. There's going to be two polarized sides. So let's see if that holds true here in this discussion. Who would like to open up?
I tend to be the contrarian in all of our conversations, George. But I mean, I'll kick it off.
Okay.
I was a huge fan of Kevin Samuels. I watched a lot of his content, a lot of his entire content. And on one hand, I understand why he was polarizing. Most people that were not fans watched the clips. The clips were very salacious. I get it. The reason that people circulated those clips was for their salaciousness. And so that's, in my opinion, why a lot of people don't like him. But as someone that watched his content, the clips don't give a full view of his opinions and his perspective or point of view. I also understand that some of the things he did was for entertainment. So I understood that. But I think that certain titles, misogynistic, I think that those are unfair. And a lot of the stuff that he said was true. And a lot of people that when listening to him would say, well, I agree with what he's saying, I just don't like the way he says it. And so, you know, that's my opinion of him. But I think that his message was spot on. There are a few things that I didn't agree with, but I also want to point out is that the men in his example, and a lot of women pushed back against this, were men that were a level of men that most of them are never going to see or interact with. And they were pushing back against this quote unquote high value man that most men aren't. Most men aren't this high value man. Even in my income range, I don't meet his qualifications of quote unquote a high value man, number one. And number two, most of the women that were being disagreeable about what these men want aren't going to date, marry, or come in contact with these men. And so, you know, I thought that was an interesting observation. But I'm open for discussion.
Okay, so Janelle, I'm going to have to go to you because I bet you're going to say you agree with everything that Penny just said. I think you're on mute, Janelle.
That would be it. So I can actually agree and disagree with some of what Penny was saying. I actually only learned about Kevin Samuels a month before he passed. I had no idea who he was, never seen any of his YouTube videos. Nate actually told me, you need to listen to this guy. And I'm like, why? why is it relevant to me? You know, I'm an old fashioned girl. I don't watch YouTube. I'm not into social media, everything what's going on. I just focus on my little world and that's it. But when I actually started listening to some of his commentary and some of the videos, I'm like, wow, this guy is harsh, but he's kind of speaking some truth, you know, in a sense. So I feel, you know, I'm 38 years old, pulling up to 39, just got married 2 years ago, just had my first baby. Like for me, it was a process, you know, getting to, you know, marriage and, you know, having a baby. But nowadays, I would say respectfully, most women, and he made a lot of valid points, but most women, they want to get their career out of the way. They're not focused on husband. They're not focused on kids. That was me. I was one of those women. As far as dating men in certain income brackets and, you know, all this and that I've dated blue collar millionaires, you name it. For me, it's all about who touches your heart, you know, who you can build a family with. At the end of the day, I feel like if women want to get married past 35, that's fine. More or less, that's what's happening nowadays. Anyway, I'm a perfect example of that. I don't feel as though we are washed up, as Kevin mentioned, if you're used goods over 35 and you're not married. Again, I didn't get married and have my first baby till I was 37. And I plan on having more children with my husband. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you know, you take it with a grain of salt. If it doesn't pertain to you, I don't let it kind of bother me. But for the women out there who are listening to this and thinking, okay, well, oh my God, he's saying I'm used goods and I'm not nothing because I'm not, you know, dating this kind of man or this kind of, like, I just ignore all that. You have to go after, you know, your worth, one, go after what you feel is good for you. And if it's somebody that works at the train station or if it's a doctor, or if it's a lawyer, whatever it is. So that's just my opinion so far on that.
So technically, according to Mr. Samuel's relationship book, you would be considered a modern woman party of one?
When you say party, what do you mean, like single?
I thought you were responding to that. Unmarried women who choose unmarried women 35 and older,
Right.
who are he considers, you know, waiting to choose after 35. He calls a modern woman party of one. You're saying that you don't hold credence to that?
No, absolutely not.
Okay,
No.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, Russell.
Yeah. I think he was polarizing because basically not just what he said, but how he said it. I think if people were to go through and I guess you could say check his history or whatnot, and not just the viral clips, you would see a little bit more, such as he started, as far as to the best of my knowledge, he started really getting popular and trending the past year when he started saying certain things that would spark women. But previously, he did a lot of commentary about men, what they aren't doing, what their shortcomings were, and how they needed to get things together. But that didn't sell, for lack of a better term. And as you notice, most people never talk about or mention things that he said about men needing to get their affairs in order, men needing to be able to provide and things of that nature. What did spark people and get people interested or just listening to him and going viral were when women would call in. It was almost like a Maury Povich or something. Like they call in, and if you didn't know anybody, you say maybe it was scripted. You know, they call in and they tell him what kind of man they wanted, and he'd ask them, well, how old are you? How tall are you? How much do you weigh? How much money do you make? And then he would basically go by, okay, depending on what he thought about you in that aspect, then he would tell you where your place in the dating world was, basically. I remember there was one lady who said she was 5'9", about 220. He was in her 30s, and he said, you look like Emmitt Smith, like a linebacker, like a running back, NFL running back. And, you know, for me, him saying that, let's put it this way, had it been on stage, you know, as a comedian, it would have been hilarious. But because of the format that it was in, people took it and said that's harsh or whatnot. But a lot of times he did, and I'm not a fan of his, so to speak, but I can divide things up and say, okay, he's got a point here. It's his delivery is because now everything is PC, so you can't say certain. You can't, for example, you can't say fat because fat is offensive. But if you are, you are. You have to say big boned or big or something. It's all the same thing, but you can't say certain things. And I just think that it was his delivery that rubbed people the wrong way. But what he did was by rubbing people the wrong way was he grew his following. So there was a method to his madness also. And the only reason we're talking about, and the only reason people were talking about him like this and in other avenues, or he started trending, is because he said things that were like catchphrases. He said things that would spark people because no one ever thought about or heard of high value man. Now, if you say high value man now, you automatically know what the person is theoretically talking about because he put that out there. But I don't think he was all bad. I don't think he was all good either. It was just he did what sold. I mean, that's what you do. You do what sells. I mean, you don't get over 1 million followers because you're not entertaining or you're not sparking people.
So he went to the price to the highest bidder then.
Yeah, he got. If he just told you like a counselor would do it the way and wasn't rough with it or whatnot, nobody would care. Yeah, nobody would care. It's about ratings and views.
Right. So Janelle, let me bring it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put you in the uncomfortable or comfortable position based on how you look at it, of speaking for the women in our community at large. Do they have a point in their issues with Kevin Samuels? And if so, what would those points be?
I would say, and let me piggyback on what Russell said before I answer that question, George. I feel as though it was more entertainment. It's no different from going to a comedy show and someone cracking jokes. And then guess what? That's your favorite comedian because a couple jokes resonated with you and now you follow that person. I think Kevin Samuels, he definitely was an entertainer. Yeah, he spoke some things that were harsh. He spoke some things that were true and untrue. They resonated with some people and they didn't resonate with other people. But at the end of the day, I think that, for me, the lens I look at it as it's just entertainment.
Okay.
But to answer your question, I think the women who may have taken it personally are women who actually are living that truth, right? Or, they're not where they want to be in their relationship status or in their life. And, he kind of said something that kind of, struck a nerve, if you will. I think the women who are confident with who they are and their stance in life and their relationship status, whether they're single, married, divorced, whatever, like I said earlier, you kind of just take it with a grain of salt. Because I'm not going to lose any sleep based on what someone said, who I'll never meet him. I'll never probably meet any of these people that he was interviewing. So why would I let it affect me? So that's just the way I think about it. So.
And what do you feel his impact has been on women and men relationships in view of your perspective? Has he been a positive force or has he been a divisive source?
I would say a little bit of both. At the end of the day, if we can't figure out how to come together and love each other more, especially in Black relationships, because you don't see a lot of married Black people nowadays, right? Then we have to figure out a way to collectively, come together and try to work with each other rather than against each other. That's just my opinion. I wouldn't look at a Black man and say, well, I'm not going to go for him because of his social status or, he's been to prison or what have you. For me personally, it's like, to have a good relationship with someone is based on, your compatibility and, other factors that will keep you together for the long term. So some of the things that he was saying, I think were a little bit irrelevant. And it's just really just a case by case basis. So.
Interesting. That it's really striking to hear you speak from that perspective. in view of how many, I mean, I very rarely have met any of the women in our community speak highly or positive of Kevin Samuels. And I would say that, you know, not all of the women that I am thinking about would be, I mean, I would consider them high value. I would consider them women of substance, you know, accomplished. However, he tends to trigger them more. So I'm really surprised, or you know, I'm at a loss for words how I can really describe your response, especially in view of the polarity that he has created. Penny, what's your view on this? I saw you were nodding in agreement with Janelle and on much of what she was saying.
So Janelle hits the nail on the head. I want to point out a couple of things. A lot of Kevin's views aren't even his original views. A lot of his material, his viewpoints, are not new. Shahrazad Ali he quotes her a lot. A lot of things that he talks about comes from her. And there's someone in the comment section that points out a lot of the term high value man is not his. Neither is the definition. I think he just does a better job of articulating it, and he's more entertaining. But he is crisp in his articulation of the argument. And I agree. Most of the people that don't like him are the quote unquote hit dogs that holler. So, for example, when I was younger, and you know, I was a broke college kid, and I wanted the pretty girl, you know, and I'd be around the quote unquote ball of dudes, you know, and they talked about the broke scrubs, I feel some type of way.
Mm-hmm.
But as a guy, especially as a black man, I'm conditioned early that, you know what, you don't win them all. You know, I'm conditioned early to understand my place in society, and any value that I have, I got to earn it. One of the things that Shahrazad Ali has said and Kevin articulates is that we've not held that same lens up to our women. And when we have, and I'm talking about black women, when we have, there's major pushback. Because if you go back to the footage of her after she wrote her book, talk show rounds, she drew similar pushback. And this is back in the late 80s, early 90s, having this exact same conversation. And so, yeah, Janelle hits it right in the head. The women that don't like the message, they're the hit dogs that holler. And with due respect to Janelle, you know, you're married. Janelle, with due respect, you're also an attractive woman. You know, and so you don't fit, and you also are seemingly, and because I don't know, I'm not your husband, feminine. You exude it. And so, and if you watch enough of Kevin, you'll see that, again, outside of the salacious clips, which are, in my opinion, about 5% of the content. Most of the conversations that he would have weren't that bad. And just as many women that would call in and disagree with him, he'd have as many calls, a lot of older black women, a lot of married black women that would call to thank him and say, yes, you're right on. Thank you for saving my marriage. And I agree with you. That's why he grew to be as big as he was. But men like him precisely for the fact that he says what we can't say. Because if you ever sat in a barbershop or at a basketball court, this is how men talk.
Okay,
you can't be honest in public because media is controlled by women.
Let me bring that back to Janelle.
You get canceled.
So Janelle, he made some qualitative statements about you in terms of your attributes, your characteristics that parallel the style of Kevin Samuels. So how did his comments strike you in terms of his assessment of you?
Well, thank you, Penny. I appreciate that. It's funny because when I was like growing into knowing who I was as a woman and embracing, you know, just me as being a woman, I remember when I started dating, the guys who I really liked that were fine, whatever you want to call it, I had to chase them, right? they weren't really interested in me. Guess what? Because they had a lot of attractive women around them. I had to chase them. And then the average dudes were the ones that were at your doorstep ready to marry you tomorrow. And you're like, yeah, I'm okay. you know? So, I was in some relationships where I had to settle for someone who I wasn't even necessarily wasn't my type, but they grew on me. And the so-called men who are the high value men, if you will, that are fine, that are hard to get to, that, maybe the white women are taken, those were the ones that were hard to get, even for a attractive woman like myself. Or, I don't think I'm all that, but I think I do pretty well. So I think it's all relative. It all goes back to, a man at the end of the day of high value definitely wants a woman of substance. There's no question about that. You got to have something to bring to the table, if not being the table yourself these days. No man of high value is going to, be with a woman who's out still running the streets, who's keeping her options open, who's on Instagram every day trying to get likes and follows. I mean, he wants somebody with a 401k plan, somebody of substance. I think nowadays, even looks, most men of high value want somebody attractive, but even if they're just an average girl, you at least got to have that substance. For me personally, I'm an entrepreneur. I came from a place where I was making $10 an hour, and I was still trying to go after these high value men, but I was like, let me pump the brakes. Let me just go stay in my league, but, since I've elevated myself, I feel as though, okay, maybe I can go after the higher quality men over the years before I got married. So I think it's kind of just, like I said earlier, case by case basis. You definitely have to put yourself in a position as a woman to just stay in your league. I remember Kevin Samuels mentioned something, these women who want these high quality men, but they're not high quality women. They're not even doing nothing to excel their education. They're not doing anything to get better jobs. They're not doing anything to, be a wife. They're just girlfriend material. And these men are looking at that. So I think that's something that's, just a case by case basis.
So Janelle, from the experience of a woman in our community, what is the ratio of substantive women to high value men?
I would say, I don't know. I would say that's a great question. I mean, I really don't know. I know, like within my circle, like my friends who are married to high value men, they're also high value women. They're go-getters, and the ones who are still out here, trying to find a husband, they're still of high value too, but they just haven't landed, that particular guy. But who's to say you even have to be with a high value man to be happy?
So I asked that question because there, at least statistically speaking, seems to be a disparity between available men and compared to the number of women. And then when women want to put particular standards on what they want, that even slims it down even more. So I was just curious as to if that is a thought process that you're aware of or that you factor when you're looking when you're in relationship mode. Mm-hmm. Russell, what's your view so far on what you
George, can I?
For me, just the term itself, high value man, high value woman, I don't think it's concrete. I mean, because certain people are high value for whoever it is that they're dealing with. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think, because you're just listening when you're saying how you say high value, you're thinking someone who makes mid six figures and has a certain amount, not just a certain amount of money, but looks a certain way, carries himself a certain way, speaks a certain way, a certain image. And that's fine and dandy, but for some people, a high value might be the person who's making 50 a year, has a nice little home, has a reliable transportation, has everything. It's not heavily in debt, and is living a comfortable life, even though if they aren't making $600,000. I mean, so I think it's relative, and I also think that people would hear more of like heard an entire broadcast or whatnot of his, and heard a few of them, they would probably view him a little differently and view things that he says a little differently, because basically a lot of the clips that you see that went viral, you'll be under the impression that, okay, for a woman, if she's not attractive, if she's not submissive, and submissive is a catchphrase because most people don't know what it truly means, but for what people take it as, if she's not attractive, if she's not submissive, if she's not willing to cook and clean, she's not okay. You aren't going to get in. You aren't going to get in. You need to be. This is what you need to be. If you don't look a certain way, you don't need to be going after this particular type of guy. And that's what I heard in a lot of his clips that people would send around on Facebook. It would only be maybe 5 minutes or less, so you wouldn't get the entire context. I'm one of those people. If I hear something or if I read something, I need to read what was said before and what was said after to get the context. I think most of this stuff is taken out of context.
I got you.
Not because that's what you talk about. That you heard, but you didn't hear maybe a whole hour-long interview. You heard 5 minutes of it, and people take it and ran with it. Now again, I'm not saying that he was spot on with everything that he said, but at the same time, everything he said wasn't so far to the left, like Penny said.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the things that he might share are things that you hear in the barbershop, or things that men think about or talk about, but you can't say it because practically every man, if he feels like, okay, man, I would. They want a 10. Nobody's saying, man, look at that 3. She's got a nice personality. They're looking at her and not the 3. They're looking at the 10, the 8 through the 10. They aren't looking at the 1, 2, 3.
So let's go back to your. I want to drill down on that. I want to go to Penny next, and then single mama drama, no drama. She's been lighting up the chat room, so I'm going to get one of her questions in. But it sounds like the linchpin of your assessment on that is that this high value substantive categories are very subjective. It's based on where a person is in their current state. Not everybody's at the same space, so everybody has a different definition of what high value is.
Right. For example, then I let Penny go. If you get, and this is basically the stereotypical, so don't start blowing up the chat lines. Oh, now you're talking about this. But you get a guy who is lower middle class. And he goes and he meets and he starts dating a woman who lives in the project. Let's say he dates Thelma. Thelma dating this guy, and he's making what, $40,000 a year, which isn't a lot of money, especially in the way the economy is now. But Thelma's living in Cabrini Greens, so this dude making $40,000 and driving a Honda Civic, a 6-year-old Honda Civic. He's high value to her.
Right.
But
okay. Yeah.
So I mean, that's what I mean by it depends on who you are and where you are in your life, what you're trying to get to.
Right. Okay. Penny, what were you going to say?
So a couple of things. Back to, well, first of all, just talk about high value. So a very consistent theme amongst the thousands of women that called into his show is that they all wanted the same type of man, right? The type of man that even Janelle pointed out to, the handsome men that earn a lot of money, or men that earn a lot of money, tend to have a lot of options. They're gonna have a lot of women around them competing for their, attention and affection, right? That's a fact, right? And most of the women calling into Kevin's show all wanted that man. And Kevin was basically trying to tell them, one, there aren't many of them, number one. Number two, you're going to be competing not with him, but for the women around him, because he's going to be in high demand. And three, he was trying to help them understand what that man is going to want. and he spoke in generalities, and there are exceptions to every rule, but generally speaking, and I could be totally wrong on this, but history has shown us that men are valued. As the higher our income and resources go, the more we're valued, or the more we're wanted. Women, the higher on the attractiveness and feminine scale are, the more you're wanted and valued. As a general rule, does that seal the deal? No, but that's typically the requirements on the those are the requirements.
Okay,
And so that was a very common theme on the show, and even Janelle kind of pointed that out when she said that the guys that she liked, she saw that all these other women liked them too, and she had to compete. Not saying she did, but I'm just saying she pointed it out.
So I'm hearing a significant theme of superficiality in terms of what's determining these attributes. And I want to kind of dig into that a little more. However, I want to get to single mama, no drama. And one of her questions is, how can a man give women advice on how to be feminine? I think that's a pretty powerful question. Who wants to take that?
Interesting fact. Go ahead, Penny. Go ahead. Let me just say quickly.
I was going to say.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
So I was going to say he would point out things. Men know what femininity is, right? We know what femininity is. The things that he would point out mostly was masculine and aggressive attitudes, which is not attractive to men. And generally speaking, it's not attractive. And he would point out women's weights. Those are the two biggest things that he would point out that were not feminine. Being overweight is not feminine. Men don't like women that are bigger than them as a general rule. And men don't like women that are masculine and aggressive as a general rule. That's as a general rule. And he would point those things out. And that's what he would kind of point out, in his examples and talking to women. But go ahead, Janelle.
All right, Penny, you're getting real deep in there. So you keep adding more stuff to the pot to talk about. So go ahead, Janelle.
It's funny because I was a tomboy in high school, right? And I remember when I was in my early 20s, I dated this one particular man who actually showed me how I needed to be feminine, told me how important submission was, to be submissive as a woman. And I remember that day, I was like 22 years old. And ever since that day, I've wrapped it around my head. Okay, I need to be submissive. I need to be more feminine. And I just kind of ran with it. But it's funny, a man was telling me like, hey, if you want to pull a good guy someday, they're going to want you to be submissive and they're going to want you to be feminine, just period. And I'm like, okay, well, I grew up in a traditional family. Mostly everyone on my mom and dad's side been married 40 plus years. That's all I know is long-term marriages. I've seen my mom have a hot meal for my dad on the stove every night. She pretty much did everything. I mean, he pulled his load, but I seen her being submissive. And nowadays it is different. I get it. Women aren't as submissive, but again, to each its own,
So you do believe that a man can tell a woman how to be feminine?
To a degree. I mean, and it's probably more or less, okay, this is what I like. If you want to be the type of woman that's going to rock with me, this is what I like. Either you got it or Linda, Keisha, and Michelle got it. So what you want to do? And this was someone back in the day who I was really trying to be with. So of course I'm going to listen. Oh, you want me to dismiss if I got that? Yeah, that's easy.
So is how to be a woman the same thing as what men like in women? Are those two things synonymous?
Yes and no, because how to be a woman is kind of relative, because some women don't know how to cook. Does that mean you're not a woman? No. Some women, don't want to put on a dress every day. Does that mean you don't want to be a woman? No. I think it's all relative, but I think it all boils down to being tailored to your man, whatever your man likes, and pleasing your man. I've dated Muslim men who didn't want me to wear weaves in my hair and wanted me not to wear tight clothes. And guess what? I conformed to that at the time. Then I dated somebody who liked boobs and they wanted my boobs out all the time, wanted tight dresses on. Guess what? I conformed to that at that time. So not that I'm a puppet, but at the end of the day, if you want to be in a productive relationship, it's the same thing as being compatible with someone. If they want you to be a certain way, you want them to be a certain way, you got to meet in the middle. Do what you got to do. Because guess what? If you don't do it, somebody else will. So
Russell, Penny
Yes.
says, Penny says that overweight women is not feminine. That's a pretty strong statement. Where do you rest on that statement?
I wouldn't say it's not feminine. I would say it's not healthy, and I would also say, depending on how it's distributed, is no, it's not attractive. But overweight is also subjective. I mean, it depends on what a particular man likes. Some how a woman's shaped. Some men like big women. Some men like big women who are shapely. Some men like, just like thick women. Or it just depends on how it's shaped, because you can be in good shape and overweight, or big according to charts. But for example, when she's at her peak, I don't think anybody's gonna tell you Serena Williams is overweight. She, according to a chart, she's overweight, but she's muscular, she's athletic, she's a thick woman. But she's not. Nobody's gonna say, oh, I don't think anybody's gonna complain about her size for the most part, unless you just don't like women who weigh a certain amount. So, but I don't think that weight is not feminine. I just think it can be unattractive depending on how it's carried, and it can also be unhealthy. But I don't think that defines your femininity.
Janelle, is overweight, does that principle work in reverse for men? Are overweight men masculine or not masculine?
I'd like to touch on the fact about overweight women as well, but I'll do that after. I would say, I mean, like Russell said, healthy. I want somebody that's healthy. If you're a couple extra pounds over, I want to figure out how you can get healthy so you don't fall out on me someday. Like that's for me. And aesthetically, as far as looking at you, yes, I want to be attracted to you. If you're a couple extra pounds, we can work together. For me personally, I like someone who's fit and who's in shape. But not to say that someone still can't be attractive and masculine if they're overweight. But if you look sloppy and you're not healthy, it's gonna be perceived to people, and then they might not be attracted to you. So you just, it's kind of a fine line. So.
Okay. All right, I got you. Now, single mama, no drama. She is not stopping. So I got to read two of her licks in a row. First of all, she says, overweight women are not feminine, and short men are not masculine. I wonder how short men feel about that. Ooh, at least women can lose weight. Men can't get taller. Then she says, but his money can still make him high value.
I'm curious.
Can I chime in on that one? Can I chime in on that one, George?
Yeah. Yes.
And just I just let you guys know, I only got a couple more minutes because I got to after.
We're going to be in this shortly.
I played in basketball league, and so I have a game. Okay. So a couple of things. One of the things that Kevin, and yes, I'm a Kevin fan, it's obvious. One of the things that he pointed out frequently was, he said, we measure successes by marriages, right? A lot of the pushback is that, some men find big women attractive. And Kevin would say, so where's your wedding ring? Or where's your husband? Right? Some men like aggressive women. And Kevin would push back, so where's your ring? Where's your husband? He would also point out that dating is not symmetrical. Black women, Kevin's opinion and mine based on my experience, they create what they want in a man. They go out, they get good jobs, good education, these incomes, right? But they don't work on the things that are going to make them attractive to men, which is their femininity, their agreeableness. I won't say submissive because that seems to be that's like pulling a fire alarm, but those are the things that attract women in general to men. We're attracted to women's femininity and agreeability. We want peace. We don't want to be married with a man to be married to another man. You know, that's not what men want. You know, that's how masculine men want. And through time immemorial, women have been attracted to men with money. That's how it's always been. Men with money have always been able to attract the finest of fine women. Height doesn't matter. If you make a certain amount of money, height doesn't matter. If you have height with the money, it just makes you more attractive. That's how it's always been. And he's always pointed that out. And I think that we're finally holding a mirror up to the other side and seeing what black men actually think and how we feel. One last point. Another thing that was common is that women they misvalue and overvalue what they bring to what he called the sexual marketplace value. Basically, how you're viewed in the dating realm, right? So, for example, as Russell pointed out earlier, when he was talking to men, he would tell men, like there was a callers to call in and say, you know, I'm trying to get with this beautiful woman, and so Kevin asked the guy, how much money do you make? What do you do for a living? What do you have to bring to the table that's going to be able to attract that kind of woman? And inversely, he would ask these women who maybe they're at a certain income level, but they're 300 pounds, you know, and they feel like they deserve a man at their income level. He's like, you're not going to be able to attract them because he's not going to be attracted to you for your money. It's going to be your looks. And that matters. And I think that we've never had that conversation. We never had that conversation about men, specifically what black men want.
So question. You have to make a choice. This is a hypothetical situation. You have to make a choice. A woman has to make a choice between a man that really loves her, but isn't really attractive, between a man that is okay. He tolerates her, but he has all the money. Which one would that woman choose?
You want me to answer that question?
Just everybody. That's for everybody. Just give me a quick round. Don't give me a long one. Just give me a quick. Which one you think?
All right. She's gonna go for the money. The guy that's the pure guy ain't gonna have a chance because he doesn't have the money. Not initially. He ain't gonna have a chance. She's gonna go for the money.
I'm gonna go for the guy who's making less money. I've been on both sides of the spectrum. So, and I can tell you the guys with money, a lot of times they're jerks and you got to deal with a lot.
Interesting.
You got to pay the price.
Okay. Russell?
If we were still in the 50s or whatnot, she's going to go with the money. But nowadays, I think she's going to go with who's going to make her happy. I don't think it's necessarily the money, especially if she's doing all right. If she has nothing, she's going to probably go with the money. But if she has anything going for herself, she's going to go who's going to make her happy.
So now let's do this in reverse. For the men have a choice between a very attractive woman who doesn't really cater to his every need, doesn't really, but she's willing to be with him, versus a not very attractive woman who she does not meet most of his physical requirements or visual requirements, but she is undyingly there to support him, work for him, whatever he needs to succeed. She's there. Which one will most guys pick? Starting with you, Russell.
Initially, they're going for looks.
First thing is going to be looks, but as you get older and you think I think it also depends on what that guy has, but me personally, if I don't have any attraction to you, I'm not going to even get to the point of finding out that you got all this good stuff, unless we're in a situation like we're in a class together or we work together and your personality slides in there and overcomes your unattractiveness. Other than that, just regular day to day, I'm not attracted to you, I'm not going to even find out how good of a person you are. I mean, it's not shallow. That's just the way it is. You don't spend time with people with a person of the opposite sex that you don't find attractive.
So Penny,
unless it's just friendship.
So Penny and Russell are down for looks. Janelle, where are you? What would the man choose?
I would go with an average woman who was putting a meal on the table every night, who was being submissive, who was conforming to me as a man, and we were kind of vibing off each other, because you could fix her up. You could put makeup on her. You could help her work out. You can make her look whatever. But a woman who's beautiful, the minute you give them some bullshit, they out the door. Because they got options too. So there's a lot that comes with a nice looking woman, which sometimes they ain't wrapped too tight either.
Okay,
so,
I got you. All right, I got you. So
that glitter ain't gold. Y'all heard that from your mamas before.
So single mama, no drama. She really lays it down with this next piece that I'm going to quote from her. She says, "Today, women can do what men do. So women don't need men for the traditional expectations that, the money, the security, because women can do that for themselves, which basically makes a challenge to the relationship today. What do men and women really need from each other at this point? If men can do what women can do and women can do what men can do, why do we need to be together?"
I'll just say this. You might not, this can go from both.
Can I get one last comment? Because I gotta go.
All right, Penny.
All right, go ahead.
Go ahead, Penny.
One last comment, because I gotta go. So I disagree. From a monetary standpoint, they can, but from a relational standpoint, they cannot, because Black women specifically, that are making more money, that are single, are not happy. That's why they're complaining about there not being men. They cannot move as men. Men have adjusted to the game and understand that if we want more options, we their body does not give their femininity and looks to. So, but as you said, what?
We got
the men and women cannot move the same.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, we got what you said. Okay, Russell, 30 seconds. Yeah.
Okay.
On timer.
But I got
right,
to wrap you guys.
Thank you, Penny.
All right.
Yeah, Ben.
Basically, when she says, we don't need each other or whatnot, and it can be from both sides. You might not need a man, so to speak, but I bet you want one. Just like for a man, you might not need a woman, but I bet you want one. So it's not just about needs, it's a want.
Okay. All right. Got you. And then one last thing before we close out, because I think Single Mama Drama needs to write a book. She might be able to fill the void for Kevin Samuels, the way she's talking. She's got some good stuff here.
We got to have her on the next show.
Yeah, right. She says this about men. They want an Instagram model and expect her to be submissive, wifey material. Ha 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 ha.
The Instagram models, they ain't for it nowadays. They focus on being Instagram models.
And then she says, and they call women delusional. Woo! That's a mic drop.
Yeah.
Right there.
That's a mic drop.
I had no desire for an Instagram chick. I just don't. I mean,
yeah, you don't want that. Handful of trouble.
Just be attractive to me. I don't need everybody else to say, "Oh, look at what he got." As long as I'm happy, that's all that matters.
Well, what I can say is we may never bring everybody to one side of the coin as far as the perception of Kevin Samuels, but he has provided inspiration for discussion. Just like this platform right here, we're talking about issues between men and women in our community. And I've definitely heard some things that I wasn't expecting to hear from all sides of the table. And so I think regardless of what you feel, where you stand with Kevin Samuels, I think we all can agree on that he has sparked intense discussion about the Black male and female relationship. What would you all say to that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And probably for years to come. I mean, until people can get it together and realize like half of this stuff, it probably don't even pertain to you. So why are you worried about it?
Yeah. So we're going to close out. I want you guys to give just a 1 or 2 liner relationship advice that you would give as yourselves to the listening audience? Start with Janelle.
I would just say stay true to who you are. Focus on your journey, your career. The right man will come at the right time. For me, my husband's a doctor. I was with him in his last 2 years of residency where he wasn't making a lot of money, and I hung in there. And now it's like I get to talk to him maybe once a week. So it's like, did I even pick the right man? So it's like, all this high value, this, that, it's all relative. I was with him when he's broke. I'm with him when he's got money. And guess what? At the end of the day, things don't change. So just stay true to who you are and just focus on what's good for you. Who works
I like
for you.
that. I like it. Russell?
I would say as long as it doesn't include abuse, you do what works best for you in your relationship. Because at the end of the day, that I don't believe there's any such thing as a relationship guru or expert. It's all their opinions that are based on things that they've observed or things they've gone through. And it's one of those things where if it doesn't apply, let it fly. Because a couple of years ago, we would have been having the same kind of debate about the gospel of Steve Harvey, because every woman in America was loving it, and every man in America was hating it because he was pigeonholing and putting everybody in a particular box that they didn't fit in. So just do what works best for you.
And I appreciate that, Russell. And I'll close the show out on my prescription that the most potent sexual organ in both man and woman is the brain. And the most powerful relationship tool that two people can use is their ears. So I'll let that marinate. This has been a great presentation. We lost Janelle. Let me add her back in. Okay, Janelle, thanks for popping back in. Sorry. Thanks for popping back in. So on that note, this has been a great discussion. This could be a part 2, 3, 4, 5, on to infinity. Single mama, no drama. You have been an invaluable ghost panelist, and we need to get your information. Maybe we'll get you on the live here at some point. But until the next time, this has been Black Space Live. I'm George Middleton. Russell, what's your last name?
Tanker.
Russell Tanker. And Janelle
Akinde.
Thank you very much for participating.
Thank you.
And we'll see you on the other side of the Black Space Live tracks. Peace.
Thank you, George. Bye, Russell. Nice meeting you.
You too.
Take care. Bye.